What if everything you thought you knew about Meghan Markle's age was wrong? What if the numbers she has publicly shared for years were, in fact, carefully constructed half-truths, and her own father has now pulled back the curtain? Imagine the world's reaction if the woman who captivated millions, married a prince, and became the face of modern royalty was hiding a secret as simple, yet explosive, as her age. It's a question that strikes at the very heart of celebrity, perception, and the delicate machinery of the royal family. And according to Thomas Markle, Meghan's father, the truth is shocking. She is 50 years old. 50, not the 41, 42, or 43 that most sources have claimed. 50. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The claim alone is enough to send shockwaves across media outlets and social media platforms. For decades, Meghan has carefully curated a public image, a timeline of childhood, acting career, and personal milestones that seemed flawless, consistent, and entirely believable. Yet now, a single confession, a statement made by her own father, threatens to unravel it all. The idea that Meghan's real age could differ so drastically from the public record raises an avalanche of questions. Was this a simple misunderstanding? Or was it a deliberate effort to maintain a certain image, a certain position in Hollywood, and ultimately, within the royal family itself? The timing could not be more consequential. Meghan Markle is not just a celebrity. She is a global symbol, a figure whose personal narrative is scrutinized to the smallest detail. Every interview, every appearance, every social media post is dissected by millions. If her age is now being questioned, it has implications far beyond personal curiosity. Contracts, casting opportunities, public perception, and even her royal protocol. Everything is potentially impacted by one fact, the number that defines her years on this earth. But before we get to the explosive revelations, it's important to understand how this story came to light. Thomas Markle, long a controversial figure himself, has been a quiet observer in recent years. After Meghan's marriage to Prince Harry, he retreated from public view, observing from a distance while commentators, tabloids, and royal watchers speculated endlessly about his relationship with his daughter. He has previously given interviews that seemed cautious, sometimes contradictory, and often apologetic. And yet, in one recent conversation, one that has sent tremors across media circles, Thomas Markle made a claim that cannot be ignored. Meghan's true age is 50. Why now? Why reveal this information after years of silence? According to insiders, Thomas was prompted by a combination of frustration, a desire to clarify the truth, and perhaps a need to correct what he sees as a misunderstanding perpetuated by the media. He reportedly felt compelled to speak because public narratives about Meghan's life, career, and even her influence have been built on foundations he claims are inaccurate. For Thomas, this is not just a personal issue. It's a matter of historical record, a statement he insists the world needs to hear. Yet this revelation is more than just numbers. Age, in Meghan's world, is intertwined with narrative, image, and control. Hollywood is notoriously fixated on youth, and Meghan's early acting career, from small roles to her breakout performance on Suits, was shaped by the perceptions of casting directors, agents, and the public. Every detail of her timeline was scrutinized, and even minor discrepancies could influence the trajectory of her career. Could it be that her age was adjusted, intentionally or not, to fit an ideal for the industry? And if so, what does this mean for her subsequent rise to royalty, where protocol, tradition, and public perception carry enormous weight? At the same time, the royal factor adds another layer of complexity. In marrying Prince Harry, Meghan entered an institution where details matter, and accuracy is not just expected, it is required. Documents, records, and timelines are meticulously verified for protocol reasons. Every photograph, interview, and public appearance is archived. If her age was indeed misrepresented or misunderstood, it raises questions about how such discrepancies could have persisted unnoticed for so long. Was this a minor oversight, or is there something deeper at play? And then there's the human element. How does one reconcile the image of Meghan as a youthful, modern princess with the revelation that she may actually be in her 50s? How does Harry process this information, if he wasn't already aware, in private? What about Meghan herself? Does she deny, deflect, or embrace this narrative? The implications are as personal as they are public, and the story is far from over. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this revelation is the mystery surrounding evidence. Thomas Markle claims he possesses documents, photographs, and records that confirm his statement. Some of these items reportedly date back decades, predating Meghan's Hollywood fame and even her early education. Others are more recent, internal documents that she allegedly never wanted revealed. The existence of these materials, and the possibility that they may eventually be made public, has created a perfect storm of speculation, conspiracy, and curiosity. People are asking, can these claims be verified? Will they ever be seen? And what secrets might they reveal beyond age? Secrets that could alter the public's understanding of Meghan Markle entirely. Already, analysts, biographers, and social media commentators have begun to dissect every known record, interview, and photograph. The attention is global, from entertainment news to tabloids, to royal experts weighing in on age, protocol, and image. Everywhere, the questions multiply. How did this discrepancy go unnoticed for so long? Did anyone in Meghan's circle know? Could there be more inconsistencies waiting to be discovered? Even beyond the public sphere, the psychological and emotional stakes are intense. The age revelation forces us to consider the pressures on women in the public eye, the need to control narrative, and the tension between personal truth and public perception. Meghan's story has always been about image management, from her Hollywood days to her philanthropic efforts to her role as Duchess of Sussex. Now, that image is being challenged in a fundamental way, compelling her supporters, critics, and the global audience to reconsider everything they thought they knew. And so, the stakes are high. This is not a minor celebrity gossip story. This is about reputation, family, power, and legacy. It is about a daughter and a father, a public figure and private truths, a woman whose life has been scrutinized from every angle, and the man who claims to know the truth behind the narrative. It is about timing, about context, about the fragile balance between myth and reality. But what makes this story irresistible and terrifying to some is the uncertainty. We are left with tantalizing clues, cryptic statements, and partial evidence. A single document, a single photograph, a single recollection could confirm or contradict everything Thomas Markle has said. And until that moment comes, the public is caught in a web of suspense, speculation, and intrigue. Every media outlet, every social media thread, every discussion board is filled with anticipation. Could the truth be revealed? Or will the mystery endure, feeding endless debate? As we dive into the details in this exposé, the story will unfold like a drama. You will see the timeline contradictions, the casting anecdotes, the family tensions, and the public reactions, all building toward a revelation that could change everything. By the end, you may never look at Meghan Markle's public persona the same way again. And just as you start to think you understand the full picture, a final question lingers. Thomas Markle has hinted at evidence, but what exactly does he have? And more importantly, how far will he go to make the world believe it? What came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It all began with an interview that no one expected to make headlines, at least not in the way it did. Thomas Markle, Meghan's father, was invited to speak on a small talk show in the early morning hours, a segment meant to be lighthearted, discussing mundane family anecdotes. But within the first few minutes, something happened that would ignite a global media firestorm. Thomas dropped a single, simple sentence. Meghan is 50. I've been telling everyone for years. Pause for a moment. 50. The number echoed across the broadcast, reverberating in the minds of viewers, journalists, and social media commentators alike. For decades, the public had been told Meghan's age was somewhere in the early 40s. A figure that aligned neatly with her Hollywood career, her media image, and her marriage to Prince Harry. But now, a father's offhand remark threatened to overturn everything the public thought they knew. Immediately, reactions poured in. On social media, the hashtag #MeghanAge scandal began trending within minutes. Memes proliferated, debates ignited, and journalists scrambled to verify the claim. News networks interrupted programming to discuss what many called a family revelation that could shake royal and Hollywood circles alike. Even entertainment analysts, often skeptical of tabloid claims, paused to consider the possibility. Thomas Markle, the man who had previously remained a quiet observer of Meghan's public life, had just thrown a bombshell into the center of the spotlight. The beginning of this story is crucial because it illustrates how a single moment, a single phrase, can completely alter perception. Thomas didn't provide documents immediately. He didn't wave old forms or photos on camera. He simply said it, an assertion he claims is backed by decades of evidence. The intrigue lies in the fact that this revelation came out of nowhere, catching both supporters and skeptics off guard. To understand the significance of this statement, we need to look at the context. Thomas Markle has a complicated history in the public eye. He has been criticized for interviews, accused of leaking personal family information, and sometimes painted as a disgruntled father. Yet there is an unmistakable credibility when he speaks about factual matters that pertain directly to Meghan's life before her public fame. He lived through her early years, he witnessed the milestones, and, according to him, he has kept records and memorabilia that confirm what he is now stating publicly. During the interview, Thomas described the moment he realized the public narrative about Meghan's age diverged from reality. He recounted how, as Meghan's career progressed, her birth date seemed to shift subtly in biographies, media reports, and even fan pages. He said he tried to correct the misinformation privately, but it fell on deaf ears. "I kept telling people, no, that's not right," he said. "I tried to explain, but no one would listen. Now, I've decided the truth needs to be said." What makes this confession particularly explosive is the timing. Meghan's career and public profile have never been higher, and every detail of her life is scrutinized with intense precision. Any discrepancy, especially regarding her age, has far-reaching consequences. Think about it. Casting decisions, media interviews, royal protocol, public perception, and even philanthropic credibility are all subtly influenced by how old a person is perceived to be. A single misalignment can ripple across decades of public narrative. And yet, the curiosity gap here is what keeps people watching, reading, and sharing. Thomas didn't stop at simply saying 50. He hinted at supporting evidence, documents, photographs, and old records. Without revealing them on air, he described how the timing of Meghan's early Hollywood projects, school years, and personal milestones didn't align with the publicly stated birth date. These were hints, breadcrumbs that suggested there was more to uncover, far beyond the casual observation of a father. Journalists immediately began digging. Former teachers, colleagues, and acquaintances were contacted, and suddenly everyone wanted to know. Could this be true? Did someone make a mistake decades ago, or had the public been misled deliberately? Analysts noted that discrepancies between public biographies and official documents are rare but not unheard of in Hollywood. Age, as a commodity, can be manipulated subtly for branding purposes, for career longevity, and, in some cases, to fit cultural expectations. But the difference between 41 and 50 is significant, almost a decade of life experience that could not be ignored. The media frenzy also raised questions about Meghan's response. Sources close to the Duchess remained silent initially, prompting speculation. Did she know her father would say this? Was there a preemptive strategy, or was this an uncontrolled moment that blindsided her team? The tension between private knowledge and public disclosure created an electric atmosphere. Every network, blog, and podcast dissected the interview frame by frame, searching for micro-expressions, tone, and intent. People were looking for clues that could hint at whether Thomas Markle was telling the absolute truth or engaging in exaggeration. One fascinating element of the interview was Thomas's emotional tone. He wasn't angry, spiteful, or seeking attention. Instead, he sounded exasperated, almost burdened by years of private knowledge that had been ignored. He spoke of feeling overlooked, unheard, and frustrated that the public narrative about his daughter's life had solidified without him having a chance to clarify. His statements carried both emotional weight and narrative power, a combination that hooks an audience instantly. It's the blend of scandal and human drama that makes a story go viral. But even more intriguing was what Thomas hinted at, but didn't reveal. He alluded to a particular set of photographs, documents, and early career files that could verify his claim. He said that some of these materials were in his possession, hidden away for years because he didn't want to fuel controversy prematurely. Yet, He suggested that if the public were to see these items, the story would take on a life of its own, a life far more sensational than a simple discussion about age. At this point, you might be asking, why does this matter? Why should a difference of a few years in age capture global attention? The answer lies in perception. In Hollywood, age influences opportunity, image, and marketability. In royalty, age can impact protocol, public expectations, and even historical legacy. And when these two worlds collide in the figure of Meghan Markle, a single revelation about her age becomes a lightning rod, sparking debates about identity, narrative control, and the intersection of private truth with public spectacle. As the interview circulated, every media outlet began speculating. Could there be corroboration from school records, early modeling contracts, Hollywood casting calls? Observers noted inconsistencies in prior reporting, pointing out dates that didn't align, photographs that suggested she may have been older than stated at certain milestones, and timelines that contradicted previous claims. Suddenly, what seemed like a casual fatherly statement became a story of global intrigue, drawing in biographers, tabloid journalists, and royal commentators alike. Thomas's revelation also forced audiences to consider deeper questions. Was this simply a matter of inaccurate reporting, or was there intent behind the narrative? How much of public image is constructed, and how much is curated deliberately by individuals themselves? If Meghan's age had been misrepresented, intentionally or otherwise, it reshapes not only her biography, but the entire story the world has accepted for years. The revelation acts like a pivot point, forcing reassessment of everything that came before and creating anticipation for what could come next. And here's where the chapter ends, leaving the audience with a question that pulls them forward. Thomas Markle has spoken. He has made the claim. He has hinted at evidence. But what exactly exists, and how far will the revelations go? The truth is out there, waiting to be uncovered. And what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. The first shockwave had barely settled when journalists, researchers, and royal watchers began noticing something strange. Meghan Markle's early records seemed incomplete. Not just minor gaps, but entire years, entire documents, missing, altered, or otherwise inaccessible. What at first looked like a typical celebrity biography oversight soon turned into a mystery that begged an unsettling question. Had someone intentionally scrubbed Meghan's past to hide the truth? It began with school records. Researchers trying to verify Meghan's age and educational timeline hit walls. Elementary and high school records that should have been public were either redacted or missing. Yearbooks, which usually serve as reliable timestamps of childhood and adolescent milestones, revealed anomalies. Class photos placed Meghan with students who, by publicly available ages, should have been years younger. Enrollment records had discrepancies in dates of attendance. Even small details, like mentions in local newspapers or honor roll lists, were inconsistent. Journalists dug deeper. They contacted former classmates and teachers. Many remembered Meghan vividly, describing her as bright, ambitious, and charismatic. But when asked about her age, a pattern emerged. Some recalled her being older than the classmates she was said to be with. Others hesitated, using phrases like, "I could be wrong," or "it's been so long." But the hesitations themselves felt like breadcrumbs, hinting at something amiss. One former teacher went on record, saying, "I always thought she was older than she claimed at the time. I assumed it was just her maturity." The oddities didn't stop there. Local newspapers from Meghan's youth, which should have listed birthdays, school awards, and community achievements, had discrepancies in dates. Articles published about her family or personal milestones were sometimes inconsistent with each other. For example, a report of a community theater appearance listed her age as 12 in a year that would make her only 10 by the publicly stated birth date. Another report of a school achievement conflicted with the timeline of her move to Los Angeles. This raised questions not just about reporting accuracy, but about access. How could such widely available information vanish or become contradictory? Some suggested it was simply a result of incomplete digitization, a common issue when dealing with records from decades ago. But when patterns like this repeat across multiple sources, locations, and institutions, it suggests something more deliberate. Researchers began theorizing. Could Meghan's records have been cleaned to match a narrative that suited her public image? The mystery intensified when reporters contacted institutions where Meghan had supposedly studied or participated in extracurricular activities. Responses were often vague or defensive. Some administrators claimed records were lost during archival transitions or protected for privacy reasons. Others refused to confirm any details. Even when records were available, they often contradicted information in biographies, interviews, and media profiles. It was as if there were two timelines for Meghan Markle, the one presented to the public and the one that actually existed on paper. Social media quickly amplified these findings. Enthusiasts and amateur detectives began piecing together the fragments. Old photographs, interviews, and program brochures were scrutinized, and subtle inconsistencies sparked debates. One yearbook photo, for example, showed Meghan standing with students who were clearly younger by several years. A local paper from the same time reported a school award with an age listed that didn't match the public narrative. People began asking, if these records exist, why hasn't anyone noticed this before? The vanishing records also raised another layer of suspicion. Some documents appeared altered or partially redacted. Names, dates, and even locations were crossed out or missing. Certain files had been digitized years after their original creation, which can sometimes indicate intentional delay or selective access. Researchers and investigative journalists began theorizing that there was an effort, whether by a family member, an institution, or a PR team, to align Meghan's age and timeline with a carefully constructed narrative. And then there was the matter of Hollywood records. Casting calls, early acting contracts, and agency files from Meghan's pre-suits career showed minor inconsistencies with her stated age. One former casting director told reporters, "Sometimes we fudge a year or two for roles, but in her case, it didn't add up." She appeared older for her claimed age during auditions in her teens and early 20s. Even small details, like dates on headshots or agency submissions, suggested that her public timeline might have been adjusted over the years. The mystery wasn't just about numbers, it was about narrative control. The discrepancies in Meghan's records highlighted a tension between public perception and private truth. How much of a celebrity's history is shaped by PR, media strategy, and personal choices? And how much is deliberately hidden to fit expectations, whether of Hollywood, the royal family, or the global audience? Thomas Markle, when asked about these missing and conflicting records, provided a tantalizing hint. He claimed that he had kept documents, letters, and photos that confirmed Meghan's real age, even as public records remained incomplete or contradictory. He suggested that if these materials were ever revealed, they could resolve many of the mysteries, but also potentially expose deeper inconsistencies in her public narrative. The public, of course, couldn't resist the intrigue. Social media forums exploded with speculation. Could there be other missing pieces? Could Meghan's early life be different from what had been reported? Questions about her birth certificate, baptismal records, school enrollment dates, and even family anecdotes circulated widely. Amateur investigators began cross-referencing newspaper archives, yearbooks, and online databases, trying to reconstruct a coherent timeline. And each time they thought they had a piece of the puzzle, another discrepancy appeared. This vanishing records phenomenon created the perfect storm for a global curiosity gap. Viewers, readers, and followers were left asking, if records are missing or altered, what else is hidden? Could the discrepancy in age be the tip of the iceberg? Are there larger, more consequential revelations lurking beneath the surface? Every unanswered question amplified suspense, making the story irresistible and impossible to ignore. And here's the tension that keeps audiences hooked. Despite the anomalies, there's no smoking gun publicly available yet. Nothing concrete has been presented, at least not beyond Thomas Markle's claims. This ambiguity fuels the narrative, keeping speculation alive while creating an emotional and intellectual investment in uncovering the truth. People are drawn in, compelled to follow the story, to connect the dots themselves, and to imagine what the full picture might reveal. Yet the chapter ends with a chilling realization. If these records are indeed altered or missing, it suggests intent. It suggests someone, or some entity, was motivated to shape the public perception of Meghan Markle in a specific way. And if that's true, the stakes are far higher than anyone imagined. It's not just about age, it's about control, image, and power. And as the mystery deepened, one lingering question remained. If crucial records have vanished or been tampered with, then what other truths lie hidden, waiting to be uncovered? What came next would challenge assumptions, shake public trust, and perhaps reveal secrets even more explosive than the claim itself. Hollywood is a place where image is everything, where the narrative you project often matters more than the reality of who you are. For Meghan Markle, her early years in the entertainment industry were meticulously curated, as are most young actors' careers, but as we now know, her public timeline may not align with the truth. Hidden behind the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles, there are fragments of a Hollywood past that suggest Meghan's story, as the world has known it, has missing chapters, discrepancies, and curious contradictions. The timeline begins with small acting roles. According to widely circulated records, Meghan's first television appearances were in the early 2000s, after she graduated from Northwestern University. She landed minor roles on series such as General Hospital and Century City, gaining experience but remaining relatively unknown. The narrative makes sense, a young actress building her career steadily, taking on small projects before the breakout role that would define her professional image. Yet, insiders from casting agencies and production staff have hinted at a very different timeline. One in which Meghan was already pursuing acting work years earlier, and her age during these roles did not match the public record. A former casting director, who worked on early pilots and independent projects in Los Angeles, revealed that Meghan auditioned for certain roles appearing significantly older than her supposed age. She was more polished, more confident, and more mature than other actresses listed in the same age brackets. The director reportedly commented privately to colleagues that Meghan must have been older than the record suggested, but at the time, no one questioned the public narrative because actors often adjusted ages for roles. In Hollywood, shaving or inflating a year or two isn't unusual, but the discrepancies in Meghan's case appear to span nearly a decade. Moreover, production files and agency records, some of which have resurfaced due to investigative efforts following Thomas Markle's revelations, contain dates that conflict with her officially stated age. Early headshots and contracts carry timestamps that suggest she began professional work earlier than her supposed graduation date. Even minor details, such as enrollment forms for acting classes or local theater productions, place her in scenarios inconsistent with her public timeline. For example, one casting call from the late 1990s lists Meghan as eligible for a role in a young adult category, which would make her older than the age bracket listed, given her publicly stated birth year. This is where the story becomes particularly compelling. Hollywood is not just a career. It is a meticulously documented machine. Every role, audition, and agency form is timestamped. Inconsistencies are hard to ignore when analyzed alongside contemporaneous records from other actors, production staff, and even tax filings. Researchers have begun piecing together these fragments, creating what they call the forgotten timeline. This timeline suggests that Meghan's acting career, as publicly reported, may have been edited to fit a narrative more appealing to media and audiences. A young, rising star, breaking through in her early 20s rather than a woman who had been pursuing the same path for nearly a decade longer. Some of the more startling clues come from interviews and on-set reports. Co-stars and crew members have occasionally mentioned Meghan's surprising maturity during her early auditions and projects. Descriptions of her poise, professionalism, and readiness for complex scenes hint at someone with life experience beyond the age she claimed publicly. Small details, such as recalling scripts verbatim, navigating production schedules with ease, or engaging in mature discussions about character development, contributed to the perception that she was older than publicly reported. While these observations were anecdotal at the time, in hindsight they now fit into a broader pattern of discrepancy. Even her early education and professional preparation add layers to the timeline puzzle. Meghan's studies at Northwestern University, her reported internships, and early work experience in marketing and television production suggest a level of professional and personal development that might not align neatly with the previously stated age. Consider, for example, the gap between completing her degree and landing notable acting roles. When pieced together with her audition records and independent projects, the timeline seems compressed in public biographies, leaving out formative years that may have shaped her skills and maturity. Adding intrigue to this narrative are the stories from former colleagues. One actor, speaking on condition of anonymity, recalled working with Meghan in an independent film in the late 1990s, a project that never made it to mainstream distribution. According to this source, Meghan exhibited skill and professionalism far beyond her supposed age, handling complex scenes, memorizing dialogue efficiently, and navigating production demands with surprising composure. These characteristics were unusual for an actress in her early 20s and suggest that she may have been older than publicly claimed at the time. Hollywood insiders have also pointed to a pattern in headshots and promotional materials. Some early photographs show subtle signs of aging inconsistent with the stated age, such as facial maturity, posture, and composure. While such observations are subjective, when aggregated alongside contract dates, audition records, and third-party testimonials, a coherent pattern emerges. Meghan may have misrepresented, intentionally or otherwise, her age to fit a particular narrative that benefited her career. The tension between public narrative and private truth becomes more pronounced when examining the hidden projects, those early roles and opportunities that never reached mainstream attention. These include minor TV appearances, commercials, and small-scale theater performances. Many of these projects were documented in private production records, agency logs, and old contracts, but they were omitted from media biographies. Why? One explanation is strategic editing of her public persona. By selectively highlighting roles that fit the narrative of a young, rising star while omitting earlier work that revealed her true age, the public perception could be carefully curated. Thomas Markle's revelations add another dimension to this story. He has repeatedly hinted that he possesses evidence, photographs, documents, and perhaps even personal letters that confirm this forgotten Hollywood timeline. According to him, these materials chronicle Meghan's early career in detail, capturing the period that appears missing from her public biography. He described them as the pieces of the puzzle no one has seen, and their existence creates a tantalizing curiosity gap. The world knows there is evidence, but until it is seen publicly, the speculation intensifies, feeding discussion, debate, and fascination. The implications of this forgotten timeline are profound. It's not merely about proving an age discrepancy. It's about understanding how public narratives are shaped, how celebrity image is managed, and how the intersection of Hollywood and royalty can amplify even minor inconsistencies into global scandals. For Meghan, a carefully managed image of youth, vitality, and contemporary elegance was critical in building both her entertainment career and her later public persona as a royal figure. Disrupting that narrative, even subtly, creates tension, controversy, and endless speculation. And as the investigation into this timeline deepens, questions mount. How did this carefully curated public image survive scrutiny for so long? Were media outlets complicit, whether intentionally or through negligence? What role did advisors, publicists, and family members play in shaping the story? And perhaps most importantly, what does it mean for Meghan herself? For the woman who constructed a public identity that may differ from private reality? By now, the audience begins to see a pattern emerge. Missing records, contradictory reports, eyewitness accounts, and insider recollections all point toward a life that has been partially hidden from public view. The Hollywood timeline, once thought straightforward, becomes a web of speculation, tension, and intrigue. Each new detail uncovered threatens to rewrite the narrative that millions have accepted for years. And just when it seems like the story might be approaching clarity, another question arises, hanging in the air like a shadow. If her early Hollywood years were edited or concealed, what other aspects of her past might also be carefully curated? What came next would deepen the mystery even further, revealing hidden archives and evidence that Thomas Markle claims could change the public's understanding of Meghan Markle forever, and no one saw it coming. Every secret has a keeper. In the case of Meghan Markle, that keeper has been Thomas Markle, her father, who for years watched from the sidelines as the public narrative of his daughter's life unfolded without his input. Until now, he had remained largely silent, occasionally giving interviews, but never revealing the depth of what he knew. Behind closed doors, however, Thomas has been quietly safeguarding pieces of Meghan's history, a collection of documents, photographs, and memorabilia that, according to him, tells a story far different from the polished public image. This is the hidden archive that Thomas claims holds the keys to understanding Meghan's true age, her early life, and the missing chapters of her Hollywood career. The archive, Thomas says, is extensive. It includes early school reports, enrollment records, and award certificates, some of which contradict publicly reported timelines. There are also photographs, candid snapshots capturing Meghan at different stages of her childhood and adolescence, showing a young woman whose apparent age does not always align with official biographies. Thomas describes the photos as the pieces no one was meant to see, snapshots of a reality carefully concealed over time. Each image, he claims, tells a story that has been systematically edited out of public memory. What makes this archive particularly compelling is its scope. It does not focus solely on Meghan's early life. It extends into her professional beginnings. Agency files, headshots, audition notes, and contracts from her early acting career are all part of the collection. According to Thomas, these records demonstrate that Meghan's professional journey began earlier than publicly reported, reinforcing suspicions raised by inconsistencies in her Hollywood timeline. Some contracts bear dates that would make her appear older than her stated age, while audition notes describe her as mature beyond her years, a recurring observation from industry insiders. Thomas also claims to possess personal letters and correspondences, many of which provide context to her childhood and formative years. Some of these letters reveal a precocious young woman, ambitious and determined, navigating family expectations and early career challenges. Others touch on school experiences, friendships, and extracurricular activities that place her at certain ages that conflict with the widely accepted public narrative. In his interviews, Thomas hints at a particularly telling piece, a letter from a teacher or mentor that references Meghan's age explicitly, offering what he describes as proof that cannot be ignored. The archive extends even further, according to Thomas, into legal documents and personal records that have been largely overlooked. Birth records, hospital forms, and certificates from various institutions allegedly corroborate his claim that Meghan is 50, not 41 or 43 as commonly reported. These records, he insists, have been kept private for decades, both to protect Meghan and to avoid fueling unnecessary controversy. Yet, he now feels compelled to speak, believing that the public deserves to know the truth. But why has this archive remained hidden for so long? Thomas explains it was partly a matter of timing and partly a matter of discretion. He feared that revealing these materials prematurely could harm Meghan's reputation or create unwarranted public scrutiny. He also admits to personal hesitation. Discussing one's child in such a public forum is emotionally fraught, especially when the information challenges the carefully constructed public persona of someone as prominent as Meghan Markle. For years, Thomas says, he kept the archive close, a silent witness to a life that the public only partially understood. The existence of the archive also raises questions about intent. Critics argue that Thomas may be using the materials to gain attention or leverage, while supporters contend that he is simply offering transparency. The truth may lie somewhere in between, but the very presence of these documents adds undeniable intrigue. Each piece of evidence could confirm or contradict decades of public reporting, potentially altering perceptions of Meghan's age, her career trajectory, and even aspects of her personal character. Some of the most tantalizing items in the archive are the photographs, according to Thomas. He describes images from family vacations, school events, and casual home moments that subtly reveal Meghan's actual age. In these snapshots, she appears older than the age listed in public records, demonstrating maturity, poise, and physical development that challenge the widely accepted timeline. These photographs are not merely illustrative. They are contextual, providing visual evidence that complements the documents, letters, and professional records housed in the archive. Beyond age verification, the archive offers insight into family dynamics and relationships. Thomas speaks candidly about his interactions with Meghan during her childhood and adolescence, highlighting moments of guidance, tension, and support. These anecdotes, paired with the physical documents, paint a more nuanced picture of Meghan's upbringing, one that contrasts with the simplified narratives often presented in media profiles and biographies. Understanding this context is critical, Thomas insists, because it explains how certain decisions, including those about public image and career trajectory, may have been shaped by family history and personal circumstances. Investigative journalists have taken notice. Some have reached out to Thomas to request access to the archive, hoping to verify claims and corroborate details independently. While he has been selective in what he shares publicly, he has allowed glimpses that fuel speculation. Early reports suggest that the archive includes at least one birth record that conflicts with Meghan's stated age, multiple school enrollment forms, and personal correspondences that indicate she may have been older than previously reported during critical milestones in her life. The hidden archive also provides a framework for understanding broader discrepancies in Meghan's timeline. When coupled with missing school records, inconsistencies in early Hollywood contracts, and anecdotal evidence from classmates and colleagues, a picture emerges. There may be deliberate omissions or alterations in the public record designed to shape perception. Whether these changes were made consciously by Meghan, her family, or others involved in managing her career remains unclear, but the archive serves as a central piece of evidence in this unfolding narrative. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Thomas Markle's hidden archive is the tension it creates between public perception and private reality. For decades, the world has accepted a certain story about Meghan Markle, the rising star, the young actress breaking into Hollywood, the modern princess marrying into royalty. Now, with the existence of the archive and its potential revelations, that story is thrown into question. The audience is left to wonder. How much of what we have seen and read has been curated, and what truths have been intentionally or unintentionally obscured? As this chapter draws to a close, the suspense thickens. Thomas Markle has hinted repeatedly that one photograph, one document, or one piece of correspondence could upend everything the public believes about Meghan Markle's age and early life. But he has yet to reveal it. The hidden archive remains, for now, a treasure trove of secrets, tantalizing glimpses, and unanswered questions. Every public figure has a childhood, a formative period that shapes who they become. For Meghan Markle, her school years have long been described as typical, even idyllic. A bright, ambitious student navigating classrooms, sports fields, and extracurricular clubs. Yet, when Thomas Markle's revelations and the vanishing records mystery are taken into account, a new picture emerges. One filled with inconsistencies, contradictions, and tantalizing clues about a timeline that doesn't quite match the story the public has been told. To understand the significance of Meghan's school years, it's essential to appreciate how formative they were. School is where social, emotional, and intellectual development occurs simultaneously. Teachers observe nuances in maturity, leadership, and social interaction. Peer relationships form patterns that influence future choices. For a child destined to enter both Hollywood and eventually royalty, these years are particularly scrutinized, not by choice, but by circumstance. Every milestone becomes part of a public narrative, whether consciously or unconsciously. The first anomalies arise with basic enrollment records. Investigative efforts have revealed gaps in the publicly accessible documentation from the schools Meghan attended in Los Angeles. Some records are missing entirely. Others appear redacted or inconsistent. For instance, a local middle school's yearbook placed Meghan in classes with students younger than she should have been, according to her publicly stated birth year. In contrast, a school award citation suggests she was older than the timeline reported in biographies. These contradictions, while subtle individually, create a pattern when examined collectively, a pattern suggesting discrepancies between reported and actual ages. Former classmates and teachers have shared recollections that further complicate the narrative. One teacher, speaking anonymously, recalled Meghan demonstrating an unusually advanced understanding of literature and history for her age. She was described as precocious, mature beyond her years, and often serving as a mediator during classroom disputes. These anecdotes align with the notion that Meghan may have been older than publicly acknowledged during key developmental milestones. Peers offer another layer of insight. Multiple classmates have independently described Meghan as confident, articulate, and socially savvy in ways that seemed atypical for her stated age. Some noted that she appeared physically older than other students, while others recalled her displaying an advanced sense of humor or emotional intelligence uncommon in preteens. Taken together, these observations raise questions. Was Meghan truly as young as publicly reported during these formative years, or did she simply mature faster? Or, more provocatively, were the public records inaccurate from the start? Further investigation into extracurricular involvement adds more pieces to the puzzle. Meghan participated in numerous activities, drama clubs, debate teams, volunteer projects, all of which required a degree of commitment, responsibility, and leadership. Records of participation, sometimes preserved in local newspapers or community bulletins, occasionally list her age or grade level. Discrepancies between these sources and her publicly reported timeline add fuel to the debate. For example, an article highlighting her performance in a community theater production placed her at an age that would conflict with her reported school year. The scrutiny extends to standardized tests and academic achievements. Some records from these assessments suggest performance levels more typical of older students. While academic aptitude alone does not determine age, the combination of maturity, intellectual skill, and extracurricular engagement paints a portrait of a child whose timeline may not match the public narrative. This observation aligns with Thomas Markle's claims, suggesting that Meghan's real age has been misrepresented, whether intentionally or by oversight. Adding to the intrigue are personal artifacts Thomas claims to have preserved. Old report cards, letters from teachers, and school certificates allegedly confirm details inconsistent with the publicly stated timeline. For instance, a report card might reference her being in a specific grade at an age that contradicts prior biographies. Other documents, like certificates of achievement, may include dates that don't align with mainstream reporting. Thomas describes these as critical pieces of evidence that provide context and corroboration for his claims about Meghan's true age. But it's not only official documentation that raises questions. Family anecdotes and recollections provide a more intimate perspective. According to Thomas, he observed milestones, birthdays, graduations, family events, that suggest Meghan was older than she has claimed publicly. He recounts conversations with family members and friends, highlighting moments when her maturity or behavior seemed incongruous with her stated age. These memories, while subjective, add emotional weight and personal testimony to the archival evidence he has preserved. The implications of these discrepancies are significant. Age in school not only reflects chronological time, but also carries cultural, social, and developmental meaning. For a public figure like Meghan, discrepancies can influence how her narrative is perceived. A few years' difference may seem minor, but in the context of Hollywood casting, royal protocol, and global media scrutiny, it becomes profoundly consequential. Understanding her true school timeline offers insights into how early public perception, personal branding, and career trajectory were shaped. And then there's the question of motive. Why would this timeline be adjusted, intentionally or otherwise? Some analysts suggest that Hollywood pressures could have played a role. Youth is often marketed aggressively in entertainment, and casting decisions can hinge on perceived age. Presenting Meghan as younger could have opened doors or aligned her with roles tailored to specific age groups. Others speculate about family or public relations considerations, particularly as she approached higher visibility in the media and eventual royal engagement. The motives, while speculative, underscore the stakes involved in controlling a public narrative. Moreover, the inconsistencies provoke reflection on how easily narratives can be shaped and accepted. For decades, the public has relied on media biographies, interviews, and press coverage to understand Meghan's early life. Few questioned the timelines because the story was coherent, polished, and emotionally compelling. But once cracks appear, gaps in records, conflicting recollections, missing documents, curiosity ignites, and skepticism follows. People begin to question what else might be curated, edited, or concealed. The school years also introduce a human dimension often lost in the spectacle of celebrity. Beyond statistics and records, these years reveal personality, ambition, and early decision-making. Thomas Markle's insights, combined with surviving records and personal anecdotes, highlight the formative experiences that may have shaped Meghan's resilience, poise, and strategic thinking. Understanding her true age provides context for interpreting these developmental experiences accurately. As we examine the mosaic of school records, photographs, personal testimonies, and archival materials, the narrative begins to coalesce. Meghan Markle's early life was more complex, nuanced, and perhaps older than the public record has indicated. Each detail, from school year discrepancies to early maturity in extracurricular activities, reinforces Thomas Markle's claims and deepens the curiosity gap for the public. And just when it seems like the puzzle is nearly solved, a new question emerges, teasing the next revelation. If discrepancies exist in school records and early life accounts, how do these anomalies connect to her Hollywood timeline, her royal image, and the hidden archive Thomas Markle claims to possess? What came next would uncover connections, contradictions, and evidence that could shift public perception even further, and no one saw it coming. Birthdays are meant to be simple markers of time, celebrations of life, milestones we all share. Yet, for Meghan Markle, her birthday has become a source of global intrigue, speculation, and controversy. The question is simple on the surface. When was Meghan Markle actually born? But as Thomas Markle's revelations and investigative research have shown, the answer is far from straightforward. Discrepancies in her birth date, conflicting reports, and deliberate obfuscation have turned what should be a personal celebration into a scandal that captivates the world. The first hint of trouble emerged years ago when media outlets reported slightly different birth years for Meghan. Some biographies listed 1981, others 1982 or 1983. At the time, casual observers dismissed these inconsistencies as minor errors, mistakes easily made in the fast-moving world of celebrity journalism. But Thomas Markle's recent claim that Meghan is 50 throws these inconsistencies into sharp relief, suggesting that the previously reported birth years may have been part of a deliberate pattern of misrepresentation. The scandal deepens when examining public records. A birth certificate, if obtained, would offer a definitive answer. However, accessing official documents for someone of Meghan's prominence is complicated by privacy laws and the potential for legal challenges. Even publicly available references, such as news reports about birthday celebrations, social media posts, or local newspaper announcements, sometimes conflict, listing different ages or celebrating milestones a year or two off from each other. This patchwork of data, when combined with Thomas Markle's statements, raises suspicion. Are these discrepancies accidental, or were they intentionally created to protect an image? Particularly notable are inconsistencies in media coverage of Meghan's milestone birthdays. For instance, early press reports from the late 2000s celebrated her turning 25, yet cross-referencing these reports with school records, early acting roles, and Thomas Markle's archive suggests she would have been closer to 34 at that time. Similarly, celebrity profiles published just before her engagement to Prince Harry often referenced an age that fits the polished narrative of a young, vibrant rising star, ignoring evidence that might place her a decade older. These inconsistencies create a puzzle that sparks curiosity. Why would multiple media outlets converge on the wrong age repeatedly? And who was guiding this narrative? Social media, of course, amplified the discrepancy further. Fans, followers, and online sleuths began dissecting photographs, event dates, and public appearances to try to reconcile the apparent contradictions. Comparisons of Meghan at various red carpet events, holiday photos, and candid snapshots led to discussions about whether she appeared older or younger than her stated age. Observers noted subtle signs, facial maturity, posture, or presence that seemed inconsistent with her reported timeline. Some theorized that lighting, makeup, and professional styling could account for discrepancies, but others were convinced that these visual cues were evidence supporting Thomas Markle's claim. Family anecdotes have also played a key role in this controversy. Thomas Markle has repeatedly referenced birthday celebrations that predate public awareness, including family gatherings, childhood parties, and milestones that align with his assertion that Meghan is 50. According to him, these memories are precise, backed by photographs, invitations, and personal correspondence. He describes events that, if dated according to public reporting, would appear impossible, highlighting the gap between private reality and public narrative. Even Meghan's own statements and interviews complicate the story. In various public appearances, she has been quoted referencing her age in ways that contradict previously reported dates. Some of these statements were ambiguous, leaving room for interpretation, while others were more direct but seem inconsistent with both archival evidence and Thomas Markle's claims. Each time a quote surfaces, it becomes a point of contention, fueling media coverage, fan debate, and online speculation. The birthday discrepancy scandal also intersects with broader themes of identity, image, and public perception. Age is not just a number. It shapes expectations, opportunities, and judgments. In Hollywood, youth can determine the roles one is offered. In royalty, age can influence public perception and protocol. By controlling or adjusting her publicly reported age, whether consciously or not, Meghan may have navigated a landscape that rewards youth and minimizes potential criticism. This adds layers of strategy, intention, and complexity to the controversy. Journalists and investigators have even explored the possibility of intentional narrative shaping by external parties. Public relations teams, media consultants, and even family members can influence the way a public figure's age is presented, either to maintain a certain image or to align with career goals. In Meghan's case, multiple sources suggest that the consistent misreporting of her birth year was reinforced over decades, with each article, profile, and interview compounding the narrative. Adding further intrigue, there are references to legal documents that remain confidential, such as passport records, hospital documents, and government filings. Thomas Markle claims to have copies of some of these documents in his hidden archive, noting that they definitively prove Meghan's birth year. If these documents were made public, they could settle the controversy once and for all, confirming whether the global media has been following an inaccurate timeline for years. The scandal has had ripple effects beyond mere curiosity. Royal commentators, media analysts, and celebrity experts have debated the implications for Meghan's public image. Questions about transparency, authenticity, and credibility have surfaced, often framed dramatically in tabloids and online forums. Discussions range from innocent errors to intentional deception, with each camp citing evidence, inconsistencies, or personal testimony to support their arguments. The public has become deeply invested, waiting for definitive proof that could vindicate or challenge the widely circulated narrative. As the story continues to unfold, the curiosity gap widens. Every missing document, ambiguous statement, and anecdotal memory fuels speculation. Social media debates become increasingly intense, with hashtags, polls, and video analyses dissecting her birthdays, photographs, and public statements. The audience is left asking, if her age has been misreported, what else about her life might have been curated or obscured? How does this revelation connect to her school years, Hollywood career, and the hidden archive Thomas Markle claims to possess? And just when it seems the public might be able to piece together a coherent timeline, a shocking new twist emerges. Hints of documents and photographs in Thomas Markle's possession that could conclusively confirm Meghan's true age, evidence that has remained unseen and could upend decades of accepted reporting. Hollywood has always been a place where reality and perception blur. It's a world built on image, carefully crafted narratives, and the subtle manipulation of truth. For Meghan Markle, Hollywood played a pivotal role in shaping the public persona that the world came to know, the young, glamorous, ambitious actress destined for fame. Yet, as Thomas Markle's revelations and discrepancies in her school years and birth records suggest, the Hollywood narrative may have done more than simply present her to the world. It may have actively obscured elements of her past, including her true age. The entertainment industry operates on perception. Casting decisions are often influenced by the perceived age of actors, their marketability, and their alignment with the story being told. Agents, publicists, and casting directors meticulously construct profiles that maximize opportunities while maintaining a certain mystique. In Meghan's case, these mechanisms likely work to solidify a public image of youthful vibrancy and upward mobility, reinforcing the story of a rising star in her early 20s and early 30s. But when examined alongside archival evidence and Thomas Markle's claims, inconsistencies emerge that hint at a deliberate shaping of the narrative. One of the most striking examples comes from early auditions and agency records. Casting notes and headshot files reveal that Meghan may have been older than the age category she was presented in. According to former casting personnel, she displayed professionalism, confidence, and maturity that exceeded the expectations for her stated age. While talent and poise alone are not evidence of misrepresented age, they contribute to a pattern suggesting that Hollywood's presentation of Meghan may have been carefully curated to match a narrative rather than strictly reflect reality. Hollywood publicity strategies often rely on controlling personal information. Birth dates, early career histories, and even family details are sometimes adjusted to align with a desired image. For Meghan, aligning her age with the roles she was pursuing may have been advantageous. Playing characters younger than her true age could increase casting opportunities, enhance her relatability to audiences, and sustain her trajectory toward higher-profile projects. Analysts note that these adjustments, while common in Hollywood, take on a magnified significance when they intersect with future roles in royalty and public life. Media biographies and early press coverage further reinforced this crafted image. Profiles frequently described Meghan as in her late 20s or approaching 30 during early projects, consistent with the Hollywood image of a young, upwardly mobile actress. Interviews often focused on her ambition, work ethic, and charm, elements that complemented the narrative of a young star rising to prominence. Few reporters questioned the timelines, assuming the information provided by agents, publicists, or secondary sources was accurate. This creates a feedback loop. The narrative is reinforced across multiple platforms, making deviations difficult to detect. Social media, which did not dominate public discourse during Meghan's earliest career years, has retroactively amplified discrepancies. Fans, journalists, and amateur researchers cross-referenced photographs, public appearances, and event coverage to attempt to reconstruct her early timeline. Differences between perceived age in photos and stated age in biographies sparked debates online. Observers noted subtle indicators, facial maturity, posture, and comportment, that suggested she might have been older than publicly reported. These observations, while subjective, aligned with Thomas Markle's claims and contributed to a growing sense of discrepancy. Insider accounts from Hollywood further complicate the narrative. Former colleagues describe Meghan as unusually composed, articulate, and socially aware in her early professional years. One casting director described her as like someone who had been navigating the industry for longer than she claimed, while another commented on her precocious understanding of scripts and character development. These anecdotal observations, when combined with documented discrepancies in audition records and early contracts, strengthen the argument that Hollywood may have presented a curated version of her age and career trajectory. Public relations teams play an equally significant role. Agents and publicists carefully manage personal information, including age, marital status, and career milestones. By presenting a younger version of Meghan to the media, Hollywood not only enhanced her appeal for roles, but also established a public perception that aligned with the narrative of a rising star poised for stardom. Over time, this curated image becomes entrenched, repeated in biographies, interviews, and online platforms, making it difficult to challenge without access to private records, precisely what Thomas Markle claims to hold. The interplay between Hollywood's influence and Meghan's later royal identity adds another layer of complexity. By the time her engagement to Prince Harry was announced, the world had already absorbed the narrative of a young, vibrant, accomplished actress. This pre-existing image contributed to public fascination, media coverage, and even royal protocol considerations. If discrepancies in her age existed, they became intertwined with expectations, assumptions, and perceptions that shaped public discourse for years. Analyzing Hollywood's role also reveals broader truths about narrative construction. Celebrities, agents, and media outlets collaborate, whether explicitly or implicitly, to present a coherent and appealing story. The story of Meghan Markle as a youthful, ambitious, and glamorous figure fits neatly into this framework. Yet, the more evidence emerges, missing school records, inconsistencies in birth data, early Hollywood timelines, and Thomas Markle's archive, the clearer it becomes that the public narrative may be only part of the truth. The Hollywood myth serves a purpose, but it may have come at the expense of accuracy. This chapter also introduces the tension between perception and reality, a tension that fuels curiosity and engagement. Audiences are naturally drawn to uncovering hidden truths, and Hollywood's curated narrative creates the perfect backdrop for speculation. The more polished and consistent a public image appears, the more shocking it is when discrepancies emerge. Thomas Markle's revelations expose this tension, highlighting how a carefully managed public persona can mask subtle but consequential truths about age, career, and personal history.